Welcome to the Enlighten Up podcast, where I am going to take you into a deep exploration of what it means to exist in this current reality. We are going to raise your vibes, open your mind, expand your heart, and dive deep into the wondrous mysteries and possibilities of this lifetime. There's been a spiritual catalyst that has set in motion the awakening process of many across the globe to return to the knowingness of self and unite what has been separated. Together, we're going to bring light into that darkness. We're going to remember the joy of living. But most of all, we're going to turn up the volume of our own eternal power and do the thing we're here to do. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Enlighten Up podcast. Really happy to have you here with me tonight because I have a brand new guest to the show and I'm really excited to introduce you all to her. I've been following her very recently because she has a very accurate, I would say, insight into astrology and also using tarot. So I want you all to welcome Tawny Michelle. Like I said, she uses astrology and divination tools like tarot, intuition, and experience and energy to make her predictions, heal spiritually, and help others to enlighten the fuck up. And we all know that we approve about that over here. Aligning with her spirit is the way of life for her, and it'll never cease to amaze her. She's very passionate about that. She uses her own experiences, no matter how dark they relate to others. And she believes that she's, it's about getting deep into the darkness, which we're going to talk a lot about today, and a part of living in alignment with the most truest parts of who you are. Tawny, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you here with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So, okay, first of all, audience, I want to apologize. I do have to wear sunglasses. This is not for any other reason, but for health reasons. I had laser eye surgery on Friday, and this healing process is a little slower than I was anticipating. So please excuse the fact that I have to wear sunglasses here. This is by no means a fashion statement whatsoever. So now that we've gotten through that, Tawny, what I loved actually most about watching your channel, which, by the way, guys, you need to go follow her YouTube and her Instagram and Facebook. I've left all the links below. But I really resonated with how you really get true. You get really real with your audience about what's kind of coming in through what the alignments are astrologically, what you're picking up intuitively, and also kind of what the tarot is showing you. And you deliver it as it is, not trying to fluff it, not trying to make it nice. And so you and I kind of really align on this whole anti-love and light concept. So let's get into that. What's your whole take on the love and light persona, community, all of that kind of stuff?
So as we kind of talked about, like when we first talked, basically I used to hate it. Like I used to seriously, it used to really disturb me. I just didn't, I don't know. I think a lot of it was that my path was not like that at all. My life has never been like that. I mean, I guess it was for maybe the first few years of my life, it was the best it was probably going to get. But then after that, it just was one dark transformational crisis after another, one tragedy after another. And so I don't know. I guess I had a very bleak and grim kind of look on life for a very long time. And so it used to really bug me because spirituality was never about that for me. It was kind of about life or death when I first got introduced to it. And I don't know, I was at a point in my life where I felt like I didn't know who I was. I was like searching for myself like my whole life. I was an addict for a very long time. I I had lost so much. I had lost both my parents. I didn't know my way. And I always felt like I just did not belong on this earth. Like I just came here by like someone just dropped me off here by accident. And like it was like even more like words can't explain how deeply disturbed I was. Like it just literally felt like I just was not like I just did not have anything at all of what it took to survive on this earth. And really, like now I can see it was really within the system, and all of that. But so it really sucked basically for a long time. And then when I got into spirituality, it wasn't about just yeah, some of it was about like crystals and Reiki and energy healing, and I have no fucking problem with any of that. But really a lot of it was like, okay, let's work on your trauma now. You know what I mean? Like, why, like, what are you fighting? And I got introduced to this whole other way of dealing with things instead of running from things or avoiding things or escaping things like I had done most of my life with drugs, to the point where I literally ended up in ICU and like died and came back to life and had this crazy spiritual experience, which kind of brought me to spirituality in the first place. But it was kind of just like I was shown like very early on, like, the concept of polarity and light and dark, and the human ego and the human perception. And I understood those things very early on. And I also understood like, when things came up, it was no longer about shoving it back down or trying to get rid of it. It was about actually facing it. Like the advice that was given to me from the people around me at that time seemed absolutely insane to me, because I'm like, really? Like, so like I'm supposed to just sit with feeling like I'm a piece of shit? Like, how does that work? You know what I mean? Like, how is that good in any way, shape, or form? How does that, promote healing in any way, shape, or form? But once I started understanding the why behind that, it started making so much sense. And I started like just healing and just started slowly becoming a whole different freaking person, and started feeling more in tune with myself. And so when I finally stumbled across the whole tarot astrology genre on YouTube and decided like I'm gonna do this and created a YouTube channel, and started doing tarot and astrology on YouTube, which I knew like all the basics of astrology, but I was still really learning how to like all the way interpret a chart. I had been into it like maybe 2 years at that point, and tarot probably like the same amount of time. Really, I was into astrology like my whole life, but I didn't start really like learning, oh, there's more than just the 12 signs, until like 2016, 2017. And so, which was when I had my moment,
Yeah.
wake the fuck up moment. So basically, yeah, so when I got into doing the whole YouTube thing, it was probably like, maybe like 8 months in, I started noticing, like I started getting suggested videos. And let me back up a little bit. So even before the YouTube thing, like when I met the first few people that like really helped me out, with like a spiritual path, because like I went back to AA when I got clean and out of the hospital, because I didn't know where else to go. But like I also knew, like, I worked my ass off in AA before, and that just did not work for me. And like I wasn't really like completely an alcoholic. I was more of a drug addict. And so, but it just, I don't know, it didn't quite, it felt like religion to me personally. So, but I know that it works for some people and that's fine. I just knew it was not going to work for me. I needed something spiritual, and I needed someone to explain what just had happened to me in the hospital, because it was like insane. And so basically like this like group of people that I started hanging out with, one of them, like, well, not one of them, but there was like, they knew other people that were kind of dabbling in spirituality and would like talk the talk, but not walk the walk. You know what I mean? Like post all these spiritual memes on Facebook and like, look, I got this crystal. Now I got this crystal. Like I said, not knocking crystals. I'm just like, it's like you're kind of dabbling, like you're picking up things here and there, but you're not actually like, you know, changing that much about yourself, or like going into yourself and
You're
seeing.
putting on the mask of spirituality without actually doing the dirty work.
Yeah, you're almost making it more so appear on the surface like you're
Hmm.
spiritual, but you're not actually like doing anything, you know? And so, anyway, so we would kind of joke about them sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, and joke about like love and light and stuff like that, and twin flames and that whole thing. So, but then when I got into YouTube, so I had already had kind of like, I was already pre-exposed to, I guess you could say, anti-love and light people. And so when I got onto YouTube like 8 months later, I started getting these videos suggested to me, and people started even telling me that like, oh, I like you and I like these other people over here, and I had seen their videos suggested to me. And so eventually one day I like clicked on them and I was like, oh my God, like this is like insane. Like, are people actually watching this? Like, are people actually like believing in this? Because it was just all like, to me, it just seemed like, oh my gosh, like I'm telling you exactly what you want to hear. And I'm going to just keep you coming back because I'm always going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. And I don't, it just like really, really got under my skin. And I started just hearing the same phrases over and over and over again, the same things over and over and over again. Like, you know, your soulmate's coming, your twin flame's coming, you know, like, oh, you're going to get your dream job this month and you're going to, you know, just, it was just always like the same thing over and over and over again. And I just like, it just started really getting to me. And like for a while, it like really kind of took away my passion. Like, well, it didn't. Like I lost my passion because I was so focused on that. But eventually I kind of realized like, eventually I did the work on myself. And I was like, okay, like I need to take my own advice here because this is something I need to do work on because it's bothering me and it's starting to mess with my own happiness now. It's starting to mess with like my own, you know, workflow and like my passion, like what I love to do. And like, and so, yeah. And I just started feeling like, oh, like people just don't want to hear the truth. So, those are always going to be the people that people flock towards because they're always going to be shining this big ass light, hiding their darkness. You know what I mean? And so, anyway, I kind of had to work through like a lot of that. And I like realized that from my own experiences throughout life that I was like almost scared of the love and the light because I got so comfortable in the shadow. And something else that was also interesting, like in those first few years of my life where things were great and I was happy and I had a like really good childhood in the first few years, my favorite color was yellow. And then by the time I was probably like 8 or 9, my favorite color was black. And it still is black today. And so I just felt like that was also very telling in a
Oh
lot of
man.
ways. Yeah. So it was almost like I didn't I didn't just have like a passion for the dark. And when I say dark, I'm not necessarily talking about evil, but I mean, I guess we can also perceive
Well,
as anything, you know, but
yeah, I mean, here's the thing is that um there's nothing enjoyable about going into the true shadow work of your soul. It's
mhm,
hard, and there's a reason why people drink, do drugs, do anything possible, like sex, whatever, to avoid, going there to actually face the problems. And I think, it's funny because I don't know if it was maybe a year or two ago, I put out a video titled "Stop Drinking the Light and Love Kool-Aid,"
yeah,
and it was more from the place of it. It's almost like people use light and love as a mask or as a way to cover what their true feelings are. Like someone would drop a comment on my video or on a post on, say, Facebook, and like totally be judgmental. It was a completely judgmental post, and then say light and love,
yeah,
and whatever. And I'm like, there's no light, there's no love there.
yeah,
Like, come on, let's get real. Like, just be real with me. If
yeah,
you're not happy and you don't like it, just say it, but don't sign off light and love. Like, that's not what this is about. It's not about masking everything in unicorns and rainbows and pretending like it's not there. And
mhm,
I think that's why I really resonate with your stuff, because you aren't afraid to get into the dark nitty gritty stuff that not everyone will talk about because they think people don't want to hear about it. Like when I
right,
do my readings for my audience, when I do like every bi-weekly, I'll do all signs readings for them. And they know, like I'll call them out. I'll say, hey, I don't know what you're doing here, but it's not good. And I don't see like this is coming down the pipeline. And if you don't make a different choice, and I'll say that stuff because that's life. That's
right,
life. It's not like you said, it's not about, oh, your dream job and oh, your soulmate's coming in and like it's going to be happily ever after.
yeah,
That's not what this is about. And I think there's a distinct division of reality
yeah,
between this idea that not that there's not anything wrong with light and love. What I don't like is using it as a mask to
exactly.
pretend like the darkness doesn't exist.
Yeah, or think that, because if you're stuck in that, and this goes into polarity, if you're stuck in the light and love has to win, and there's this dark bad guy, X, Y, and Z, then they're always going to be at war in your
Mm-hmm.
mind and inside of you. Because any part of you that you view as dark, wrong, bad, where that is shamed or rejected by others, you are going to separate that from yourself and not want to claim it as a part of who you are. And then, but separation, would you say that that's love or darkness, right? Like, would you say that that's light or darkness in itself, right? And so, and I love this quote I heard one time on this show called Initiation on Gaia. The guy said, the more you walk towards the light, the bigger your shadow gets. And I was like, that is like, yes, please, thank you. More
Yes.
like it's just, and also I think there's a quote by I forget who it's by, but it's basically like something about the light comes through your shadow or something like that. Like you find the light through your shadow. And
Well,
that's
that's the whole point. I mean,
yeah.
just the quote that you had said prior to that is like with anything, as above, so below.
Mhm.
If you're going into your shadows, that's where you actually find your light.
Right.
That's where your light actually is able to grow and get bigger, because it is like the darker that it is, the more capacity it has to hold more light quotient.
Mhm.
So, if you're just in a semi-dim room, like you bring in a lot of light, it's not going to make that much of an impact. But when you go into a pure dark room and then you turn on all the lights, it's
Mhm.
like, whoa, it's a completely different thing. It can hold a lot more light. So I
You're
think
taking
that's,
you're taking your consciousness and your awareness into the darkness, and then you're not rejecting it or separating it or trying to escape it, because if when you do that, you're telling yourself, this is bad, this isn't me, you're rejecting it in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take your light into the darkness and you become aware or conscious, which consciousness is light, right? Like when you become conscious of the darkness, you become one with it, right? And then you integrate it, and then it's no longer a separation. It's no longer in conflict within you, and you no longer see the conflict outside of you as a result of it being inside of you. And so just the term integration, just going into the darkness, is how you find the light, because you learn to love your darkness instead of hating it or separating it or avoiding it, escaping it, etc. Right. And so it's kind of like you're bringing the love and light per se to the darkness. Right. And that's what aggravates me at times, is like when people try to like stand for something, but they only stand for that something in a specific instance. So it's like love and light, but like not love and light to this person, or not
I know.
those kinds of people, or like not love and light over. Okay, it's like if you're going to stand for love and light, then you also need to stand for that when you're faced in a dark situation, or when you're faced with somebody that you don't like, or when you're faced with an enemy, or when you're faced with a part of yourself that you don't like, you know what I mean? And so that's how I view it, at least. And that's kind of what I've found from doing a lot of the work on myself. And that was like another thing I heard someone say one time. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. That used to bother me about like the whole, a lot of like the love and light people. And when I say that, I don't mean just like genuine people that are like, really have their heart into it, like, and just really like, trying to, help people, but like more so people that are in this constant battle still with like light and dark, trying to cover up the dark with all this love and light shit, and trying to escape the darkness by only going towards the light. But it used to like really bother me as well, because I'm like, a lot of those people will just like pump out content and all of that. And it's like, when do you have time to even work on yourself? You know what I mean? Like when, like it, so if you are doing the same things that you're telling other people to do, or if you are, actually like, doing some kind of healing, when the hell do you have time to do that if you're posting a video like every day or every week? So like that used to bother me too. I used to feel like, am I the only fucking one that's like actually doing work, like, and this was all, like a year or two ago now, but like that was another thing that used to bother me. But I think I just finally came to the conclusion that like, well, I did the work, and I started seeing my own duality in the whole situation, and my own conflict and my own ego. Like, no, things need to be this way and not that way. And it was kind of just finally like, you know what, like maybe for whatever fucking reason that I don't understand, they are helping people. You know what I mean? It's just in a different way than what I've experienced or what I believe in. And that's totally okay. Like, why does that have to be a problem? You know what I mean? Because me making it a problem is also me in conflict with myself, which is also me projecting my own shadow onto them. You know what I mean? And so it all becomes a mirror, basically, right? Like it all just becomes a mirror, and then you're doing the same thing that you think you're accusing someone else of. You know what I mean? And you end up being like, it's like in hating the bad guy, you become the bad guy. You know what I mean? It's like you end up fighting, you end up
fighting the very thing that you are.
Yeah.
This is actually amazing, guys. For all of you, she's totally teeing up next week's episode. Like you're totally teeing up where we're going to be going in next week's episode into really big, deep depth. But you're absolutely right. And I think no matter how much we may be like, oh, that annoys me, or oh, like you, whatever, everything plays a role. Yeah. And I think what I see as, for instance, those who are really avoiding the shadow aspect of life in favor of just focusing on the light, that we all have. I think I've gone there too. I must have gone there. To There's sometimes you need a little bit of hope, when you're in a really kind of you're in that dark place, and there's nothing wrong with that. But eventually at some point you start to realize, wow, it's the same thing over and over again. Oh, and it's not really changing, and it's not really getting any better. And am I being lied to? And it's not so much that you're being lied to, but you're being, what's the word? Kind of taken for a little bit of a ride, like across a rainbow on the back of a unicorn. Yeah. That's probably farting sprinkles and sparkles and all that kind of stuff.
Right. But then you land in the same place that you started, and you're like, okay, well,
what have I been doing all this time?
And it can become like addicting, dude. Like I've heard people say, like I didn't want to do anything without consulting like a new video or a new pick a card or like and that's kind of concerning too.
That's giving away your power.
Yeah, it's becoming like a whole nother addiction. You know what I mean? And so, and I truly believe that I feel like honestly anything could, but like, I don't know. I can't, it used to really irk me because I couldn't wrap my head around leading people on. It just felt very, it felt like
it's misleading.
Yeah, because I always try to put myself in people's shoes because I'm a Libra. Yeah. And so every time I would do that, like if I would try to figure out why someone would do that, I would instantly just start feeling sick about myself and like just start feeling like it was just like an attack on my integrity to do that. And because that's not how I've lived or what I've experienced. And I know not everyone has lived like me or had my experiences, but when you've went through really dark and heavy shit in life, and I'm sure basically everybody has to some extent, but when you go through it enough times, it ends up sticking with you and you end up kind of having no choice but to accept it and become friends with it, which eventually actually helps it heal.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, because really, like, we're always the problem because everything just is what it is. It's us that gets into conflict with whatever it is and has a problem with it. And then that leads to like other problems. You know what I mean? Like if you're walking down the street, like I always use this analogy, but if you're walking down the street and you hate the color red, and someone walks by and is wearing the color red, is that their problem or your problem? You know what I mean? And you can go up and try to convince them, like, oh, that color offends me, so you shouldn't wear it. Are you going to then convince everybody in the world? Are you going to give everybody in the world your power away, to basically say, I need you to change because I'm uncomfortable? You know what I mean? And so it's like, everything just is until we have a problem with it. And then once we have a problem with it, then it's a problem. But we're the ones that have the problem with it. You know what I mean? Like I could, like you could be eating anything and somebody could like it, but you could say, I don't like it. And then it's this dilemma, you know what I mean? Like, and instead of just saying, okay, I don't like it, it is what it is, moving on, you know what I mean? Because,
not allowing it to consume you.
Right. A lot of the times we allow it to consume us, but we don't even realize like the problem is us, and we project it outside of us and say, well, I have a problem with this. I have a problem with this, and this needs to change, and this needs to change. And that's kind of like what I was doing with the whole love and light thing. It's still not my vibe. I don't hang around, I don't hang around love and light, YouTube too much. But I, like you said, it could be for people going through a really dark time. And I think if you're able to, because I think everybody a lot of people will get introduced to spirituality, and they start with the surface level stuff, the material things like crystals. And that's why I keep bringing it up, because it's like the material outer layer stuff instead of the deeper inner stuff. You know what I mean? It's like you're still in this kind of 3D reality where you're like, everything's outside of me. I have to find something outside of me to make me feel better. But eventually you get to a point where you're like, okay, this isn't working. I got every damn crystal at the shop. Like I've spent hundreds of dollars. I got a bunch of new tarot decks and I'm still miserable. Now what? You know what I mean? And that's when you have to start going inward and doing the work on yourself, because if not, it's still, the problem is always going to be outside of you, and you're always going to be powerless because it's outside of you. And so,
no, sorry, I don't mean to cut you
here,
off. But yeah, you're basically talking about the major transformation. There's a huge transformational process that requires, well, we're in Scorpio season right now, and it's all about digging deep to get to the truth, to pull it right up to the surface where we haven't wanted it to be. And, Pluto, the planet of transformation and death and all of that great stuff is basically is the embodiment of everything that you've been talking about. Mm-hmm. And what I love is that it's such a good segue into talking about the US Pluto return that is coming up in February. Well, I mean, we're already feeling it right now. When the US Pluto, well, let's just talk about the Pluto return, because it only happens, what is it, every 240 years?
Yeah.
Ish. Yeah. So none of us will ever experience our Pluto return in our lives, but countries such as the states will. And so the United States of America is about to experience its very first Pluto return. Mm-hmm. So first, let's just talk about Pluto and its significance, and then let's take it into what you're kind of seeing coming up for. What's the significance around the United States?
So yeah, like you said, Pluto takes like 240 something odd years to go around to the same place. It's got a very weird and slow cycle. Like it can speed up in some signs and really slow down in others. Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2007 or 2008. And around that time we had, I think like a market crash, like something, or a house market crash, around that time. And so, but the reason that it's so important is because for a lot of astrologers, we use, the birth chart of the day that the Declaration of Independence, was a thing, like the day that the US was declared a nation. And so basically we use July 4th, 1776. And that chart at that time, Pluto was at the very end of Capricorn. And so, so Pluto has not been in Capricorn since the Declaration of Independence until now. And so this is a big deal. This is what this nation, this is the same alignment that this nation was under when it was founded. Now, what's even more interesting about this is like the next layer to it is it's in Capricorn, which is a sign, an earth sign ruled by Saturn, which deals with authority, discipline, tradition, history, karma. It's kind of like, I always call it Big Daddy Saturn, because he is like a drill sergeant. He's
oh
like,
my God, I love that.
Yeah, you go to Jupiter, like Jupiter's like a guru, like a Buddha like figure, you know what I mean? And Saturn is like, a fucking drill sergeant. And drop and give me 50, now 50 more, keep going, just very dry and really deals with a lot of the more kind of rougher, harder patches of life that really, really test your endurance. And so Capricorn ruled by Saturn, is somewhat has a lot of those similarities because it's ruled by Saturn. And I use traditional astrology, by the way, which, and even in modern astrology, Saturn rules Capricorn, so that doesn't matter. But so Capricorn deals with, because it's an earth sign, it's a cardinal earth sign, so it's like the beginning of earth, right? Like it's the start of earth. So it deals with the foundations of things. And so Pluto, this planet of death, transformation, other countries have went through their Pluto returns, and we've seen complete, a complete destruction of the current systems and the current, laws and the current government, the current leaders that were in charge every time a country has went through its Pluto return. And I'm actually, I need to do more research on historical Pluto returns, so I don't feel too comfortable going deep into that right now. But but I'm in the middle of it, but I want to do more before I get really deep into that. But I do know that a large major theme that I've seen so far, and from what I've learned so far, is that Pluto returns bring a complete transformation, and they really weed out corruption. And they really weed out where things have gotten corrupt, or where we have not made changes to things that have long overdue needed changes. So basically, with a Pluto return in the US, in Capricorn, in the US's second house of money, resources, assets, banks, our banking system is long overdue for a major overhaul. So the economy is the easiest thing to predict because it's the US's second house, right? Everybody knows the economy, right? It's something is going to happen there. But I would say the second house also deals with what ownership and quality and value. And so I would say all of those things are going to be dramatically affected. Now, this starts, let me bring up my notes really quick. This starts, I know, February next year, so 2022. It becomes close again in July in 2022, December 2022, and then also September and October 2023. So those are the times where it will be the most intense, but even just that will ripple throughout the next few years, really probably this whole century, you know what I mean?
I think it's
140 something cycle.
for sure. I think it's important for people to understand, the Pluto return, it's not going to happen. It's not some specific day that,
Yeah.
for instance, if I don't know, Mars and Mercury go conjunct, which they're going to be doing, in Scorpio soon. But, you have the day on giver side, you'll feel the energies. This is something that's, because it's such a wide transit and it takes such a long time and it is such a far away planet, you feel it for a long time. We've already been seeing the effects of this Pluto return already in play, and we'll start to see it still thereafter. I've heard that the Pluto's, the actual date is probably up for debate, but I've heard people talk about around the 22nd of February, which, is a 22222 portal, which is very interesting. And I think that, not to get into, political stuff too much, but the platform Truth Social is being is set to launch on February 21st, which is very close, which is within the major Pluto return, which I think is really interesting because it does represent. Pardon?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it does. That's when it's set to launch. And so for that, just from the perspective of what it's meant to do, is taking down the old systems of media, of, how we get our information, and to break free of what we've all been feeling is a lot of the censorship and our speech being, suppressed. And I just found it a very interesting time for it to be launching. I'm like, well, you really can't make this stuff up. On top of the fact that they announced it at the Jupiter Mercury direct, which, if for you guys in my Telegram channel, I said that's a very auspicious time, because Mercury going direct with Jupiter is not only auspicious in itself, but it was going direct at its point of its degree of exaltation, as well as it just became visible. So Mercury was super strong. And I just think that, very good things would happen for you around that time, like business contract deals, publications, things like that. So I don't know. I see personally, at least through those alignments, that good things could definitely be coming from it. It's obviously nothing's written in stone, but there's some big shifts coming down the line.
Yeah. And well, what's interesting to me is it's kind of like this shift into Aquarius. And a lot of people don't understand Aquarius, right? Like, and the reason why I'm saying it's a shift into Aquarius is like, yeah, the US is going through its Pluto return, which is a really big deal. And it is going to affect like the wealth and those at the top. There will definitely probably be power shifts, possible like death of leaders, which has happened before, like a lot of transformation within the government, a lot of and it's also just exposing a lot of people. I know I, for one, like over the last over everything since everything happening in 2020, have kind of woken up in a whole new way to our system, which I always knew, but I didn't know as much as I know now. You know what I mean? Like, and it really woke me up to a whole different way of looking at our system and learning about the history, and like really even tracking certain astrological alignments that are happening back through history, and seeing what's happened, and seeing just how fucking corrupt our system is and has been for a very long time. And so back to Capricorn being the foundation, I feel like Pluto is really uprooting the foundation and saying, look, like this foundation is no longer going to work, right? Like there was something that was not done right when it was first built, or something over time has maybe seeped through cracks. I don't know, but it's got to go, And we had that great conjunction at the very beginning of Aquarius, starting this like whole air age. And so I feel like there's just such a large focus on Aquarius. And I feel like because once Pluto's done in Capricorn, boom, it moves into Aquarius too. And a lot of people don't understand Aquarius. They think it's like, oh, this hippie sign. We're all going to be like love and light, harmonizing. No, Aquarius traditionally is ruled by Saturn too. And it makes a lot of sense because I have Aquarius, I have Saturn in Aquarius, and I have my moon in Aquarius. And I've known a lot of Aquarian people, and none of them have been the typical way that a lot of modern astrology describes Aquarius. Like, so they actually can be very distant, very kind of closed off, very kind of in their own, train of thought. But one thing is for sure, Saturn in Aquarius, because Saturn deals with those that are outcasted, alienated, that word I'm looking for, emancipated from society. And so we already see with Saturn and Aquarius this very clear divide happening. The Capricorn Aquarius axis is like, not the axis, but the shift is so interesting to me because it's so funny, where like typically you would look at Capricorn as this traditional conservative sign, right? It's like Saturn's earth sign. So it's a little more stubborn. It's a little bit more like rigid, rough around the edges. And Aquarius is Saturn's like, you know, alienated outside of the wall. Like we build a wall in Capricorn to keep us safe. And Aquarius is those like, well, hold on. We have to think, what about on the other side of the wall? And how can we progress this wall that you're building and this society and the system? And like, and that's why Aquarius rules science and experimentation and all of that great stuff. And so Aquarius, you know, is kind of like, how do we progress? And Capricorn's very kind of conservative, let's stick to the rule book kind of thing. And so, but when we switch from Saturn and Capricorn to Saturn and Aquarius, Aquarius starts becoming more like Capricorn and Capricorn starts becoming more like Aquarius. Like, have you seen the shift in just using political parties, like for an example, right? And I don't really align with either. I mean, I agree with some things on either side, but I don't believe that either are gonna get us out of it.
Yeah, it's just it's two wings of the same bird. Yeah,
I'm not waiting for either to come in and save the day at this point. So, but so we have the traditional conservatives, Republicans, whatever, right? And I know they're different, but I don't know. They're kind of just they would be Capricorn, right? And then we have, you know, the liberals, Democrats, whatever, they would be Aquarius traditionally, right? Well, Capricorn would be, okay, this is the way we've always done things. This is what works. Let's keep to this, right? And Aquarius would be, no, we need to do things differently. We're going to protest. We are going to go against the grain of how you're doing things, and we're going to do things our own way. And where Capricorn used to be, you know, the Republicans, and Aquarius, the Democrats, are more liberal, they've totally switched to where it's like the in crowd is now the Democrats, which would be traditionally Capricorn, right? And they're not wanting to do anything new because all their ideas are old history, old school, right? We've seen them, they have not worked before. So why are we trying to do those, you know? So we have this, you know, Republican, you could say, not Republican, sorry, Democrat, you could say, system now kind of acting like Capricorn. And we have this Republican system that has, you know, been obsessed with Trump and rebelling the rules of the system now as Aquarius, you know what I mean? And so it's so interesting to me that they shift like that. You know, what was once like my body, my choice is now only my body, my choice for, you know, other things. You know, it can only be used for one thing. And that's very Capricornian. No, it needs to be this way. And Aquarius is like, well, what about everybody? What about the outcasts? What about those over here? You know, Aquarius can be the in crowd or the out crowd. And that's what's so interesting about Aquarius. And I don't think a lot of people understand Aquarius, but we can already see the divide happening where they are creating this massive group of people, the masses, which Aquarius rules, society, the people have the power. They are creating this massive divide with the outcast versus the in crowd. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's kind of what we're seeing. But yeah, I don't think Aquarius can be pretty fucking dark too, you know? It's actually
anything. I mean, everything's got its own dark side.
But especially like, so that last half of the zodiac from Libra to Pisces, which Pisces is more transcending because it's moving back into spring, but Libra to Aquarius is the darkest time of year. That's when the sun is literally in detriment because it is the darkest in the northern hemisphere, which is what the zodiac was created off of because they lived in the northern hemisphere. So but the sun was basically dying, and so it's not hardly there in Aquarius, you know what I mean? It's not, it can't be its brightest. And so it is the darkest sign, really, of them all. And so I don't think it's going to be, I mean, not to say that there's not great qualities to Aquarius, or that I'm an Aquarius moon. Okay. So I'm not like over here trying to dog out Aquarius or anything. Like, it's a very interesting sign, but it can get pretty dark at times, depending on which side of it, depending on which zigzag of the symbol that you're writing, right? Like, are you writing the whole, trying to do what's best for everybody, or are you writing the whole trying to do what's best for just this group of people? You know what I mean? Because Aquarius is a fixed air sign, so it's fixed air, fixed ideas going in one direction. Everyone needs to think like this. If not, then you're weird, you're on the outcast. You know what I mean? And so and that's why it's a weird sign, and it's hard to understand. It's hard to describe a lot of the times. Even I still struggle at times to like come up with great keywords, because I don't believe that it does relate somewhat to Uranus, but I see more Saturn, especially with all this. Well, I guess Saturn is in Aquarius, so that may be why I also see more Saturn too lately. But I see it a lot more in myself as well, where in clients that I have, people that I've known, they're not like running out, let's protest here, let's protest, let's always be the rebel. They just automatically are like rejecting, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? It's not like this Uranian thing where it's like, let's get crazy and let's save the world. Like, most of the Aquarians I know don't really care about saving the world. You know what I mean? They're like anti-establishment, or they just don't follow the normal rules, or they have no sense of the rules in the first place, or they don't understand why people don't think like them, which is very Saturnian all to me personally. But yeah,
Well,
sorry, got off on a tangent there.
no, but I think to that point, though, that at the end of the day, in order to like save the world, you got to save yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not saving yourself, then you have no business trying to save the world. It's not going to happen. And it's one of those things where I think the energy that you're talking about from that Aquarian point of view is that, maybe perhaps that is the focus of just like, I just need to focus on my stuff and like not get involved in other people's stuff, and allow that journey to kind of take place through your own liberation, right? And thinking about your future, and how do you move into a future that is more evolved, and using that guidance to take you there. And then just be the model, because I think that's ultimately what's going to help get this world to a better place, is through everyone being the example and not trying to rally everyone else up or try to change everyone else's mind. It doesn't work that way, and it shouldn't work that way. You don't want to be changing anyone's mind. That's not what this is about. We want to have, a free thinking society where everyone has the right to think differently and think for themselves. So I think
I saw a meme the other day. It was like hilarious. It said that we could solve society's problem with one simple thing: leave people the fuck alone. I was like, yes.
Just you do you and I'll do me,
and also be an Aquarian thing too. Like, just leave me alone. You know what I mean? Let me do the same thing, And
well, since like you want me to be alone, so why don't you just leave me alone? Like
right.
What we talk about the Capricorn energy.
Yeah, an Aquarian can be, like I said, like those on the outskirts of society. Like I've seen Aquarian play out to where, like, I've seen really, really Aquarian people that like don't even live in society, you know what I mean? Like, and just want to be left alone. Like, it's distant, and that's why I really do feel like Saturn makes a lot more sense to me, because I started with modern astrology and then started getting into the roots of Hellenistic astrology and learning traditional astrology. And it was a little hard at first. I was like, I don't know, like Saturn, Aquarius, like how's that work? And I don't know. I just like, once I started seeing it, I couldn't stop seeing it. And it's just been that way. But anyway, so, but what you were kind of describing about worrying about you and then everybody else, kind of, because when you're worried about everybody else, you're like tinkering in their lives and possibly manipulating their lives, you know what I mean? And also, you're not worried about you, and therefore you're not really being your authentic self. And so you're not really giving people the authentic version of
Mm-hmm.
you because
Mm-hmm.
you're more worried about them and what they think. And therefore you're really being kind of fake, which isn't, that's not bad or good. I'm not saying anything about being fake. Like, we all can have a tendency to do it in some regard or another, but after a while of doing that, you lose yourself, and then the people around you don't even really actually know who you are. And then that, so it doesn't work either, you know what I mean? Like, constantly worrying about, like, I always tell people, like, selfishness is not a bad thing. Like, we are inherently selfish. Like, we have egos for a reason, you know what I mean? Like, if we need to survive, and that's what we need to survive in this world, like, it's okay to worry about you, because as a society we're always told that you're selfish if you worry about yourself, you know.
Yeah, but there's a dark and a light aspect to being selfish, you know? Like, you need to be able to take care of yourself. You need to know when you have to make yourself a priority.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're no good to anyone else. You can't offer the things that perhaps if you want to be of service in a very positive way. If you're not taking the time to serve yourself in any beneficial way, then eventually your tank is empty. You don't have anything left to give, and you're not at the peak levels that you would be needed to serve well. So, like with any, like we were just talking in the beginning, there's dark and light to everything. So,
Which is
to,
very Leo too, which is the opposite of
of
Aquarius.
Aquarius,
And I
yes.
feel like when, if we're seeing too much of the Aquarian energy or feeling it too much, we have to balance that out with Leo. And even if there's nothing in Leo, you know, right now, like, we have to balance it out with that Leo energy, because it is the opposite. You know what I mean? It's the other side. And I
Hmm.
noticed a lot when Mars went through Leo this past summer, I started seeing a lot of people say, like, this isn't about the individual. And I was like, yes, it fucking is. Because the individual impacts the collective, no matter how small, large, etc. We see that with, like, influencers, celebrities, like legendary figures. They did one thing and boom, it ripples. You know what I mean? One person,
Hmm.
like, and so it really does not take an army of people or even a super powerful person to affect change. Like, the individual can affect change on the collective level. And that's what Aquarius and Leo, that axis, is learning about. You know what I mean? Like, like, in this lifetime, how to between the individual and between the collective, and how that relationship dynamic kind of goes back and forth, and how to balance it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's get into taking the Pluto return a little deeper, because
yeah.
we're having a major nodal shift occurring in November. At
Yeah.
least one of the nodes is finally entering Taurus,
Mhm.
and eventually the south node will enter Scorpio. But we're also having the Venus retrograde. For those of you who are in my alchemy program, you know I talked about this on our Sunday night call in October, but this is adding a very deep element to the Pluto return as well. Can you go into those two?
Yeah. So a few other things that I wrote down for the Pluto return: shifts in power, shifts in government, shifts in laws, shifts in uh, shifts in the wealthy, wars, especially civil wars. And these are all just possibilities, not saying they're for sure going to happen, but total transformation of a country's systems, foundations, and civilizations. Um, Transformation of the culture. Major corruption is always exposed with a Pluto return. A Pluto return always guarantees to unveil massive corruption in the foundations. Well, not the foundation, it's the foundation for the US, but other
Mm-hmm.
cases, just massive corruption.
Pluto doesn't like secrets.
Yeah, because it's gotten that, like, when a Pluto return happens, it's usually by that time it's like gotten that bad that something needs to be dug up, something needs to be unearthed, you know, things need, I mean, Pluto is like an atomic like bomb kind of change. And now I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying like the effect that it has is like it's a nuclear like energy, you know, it's not just like, oh, you know, a president steps down or something, you know, like it's changing. And especially in the US being in Capricorn, it's changing from the roots up. And so everything physical, everything material, the way that our economy works. And I'm sorry, like there's not, I kind of thought I meant to say this in the beginning, but there's not a really love and light way to talk about this. There's not really a way to like sugarcoat it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that it's leading us towards some really evolutionary times that hopefully we'll get to see in our lifetimes. But because these changes are so like, you don't know, it's hard to say like for sure when you're going to start seeing like somewhat of a dust settling effect, you know, like it's going to seem like chaos for possibly a while. So you're not really sure like when things are going to be getting rebuilt or, you know, whatever, depending on how bad it gets. Worst case scenario, I feel like we could be looking at a whole new country. Like this could not even be the US anymore. I feel like states may split. That could also be another very big possibility. And kind of just not having a federal government. I feel like we could be looking at a new monetary system, or we could be, I also just really, really, for some reason, have had this vibe for a while that we may be actually going back to something more traditional, like especially when Jupiter moves into Pisces. I feel like, which happens next year, I feel like we could start seeing like a theme of more holistic remedies, less big pharma. Now, I do think scientific advancement at the same time is going to take off with all this Aquarian energy, but I also, for whatever reason, I'm like kind of conflicted on how I feel about it because I feel both. Like I could see both happening. Like I don't know, it may be like a societal split where some people go and they grow their own food and they live off the land and they get back to like what's really important and living their life outside of a system that tells them you have to slave away at this kind of job, make money for somebody else, be in some kind of debt throughout your life, and then retire when you're so old that you're basically, you know, more prone to disease and illness, and who knows if you'll even live to that age anymore because, you know, like, and so basically I would be living off the land. I'd be on that side of the spectrum if it was me, because that's kind of what I'm hoping. But
well, I know people who are already setting up to do that, you know, like,
yeah, I do too. I've seen tons of people doing it, and now I'm like starting, like, because I was watching tiny house videos for like all of 2019, and now I'm starting to think like they had the fucking right. They probably were tapped in, and they probably do stuff because like all these people were doing tiny houses and like getting solar panels and like living off grid, and I'm like, oh my god, that would be so cool. And then 2020, and I knew 2020 was coming, you know what I mean, but I didn't know how bad it was gonna get, you know, like I don't know. I didn't know what was going to be it that happened.
Yeah, I don't think any of us could have seen what came through from
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I did predict the general themes, but I didn't know it was going to come in the form of like a virus and, you know, all of that stuff. But like the actual super detailed down to like the nitty gritty kind of thing. But yeah, so I think that there could be kind of like a split in society where there's kind of like this evolution of maybe wanting to still, or maybe even having like a new system. I mean, it's definitely factual that the whole Great Reset thing is a real thing. Now I used to think it was a conspiracy too, but like I've done the homework and I realized it's a real fucking thing, as much as I would like not for it to be. But and honestly, that does kind of align with the astrology. And so I feel like worst case scenario as well, that, but I don't think it's going to happen without a fight because of all the Aquarian energy. There's always going to be there's always going to be some kind of like group of masses that is against what's going on. And so yeah, but best case scenario, like we may have an economy crash and may have to rebuild. It may get a little bit rough, and we may have a shift of power. And yeah, and I don't know, we move through it, best scenario. So I don't know. We'll see.
Things are gonna keep getting interesting.
Yeah, I've had to kind of like, you have to just at this point, like, I know it's scary. And like every time I talk about this, people are like, how do you just deal with this? And it's like, I've mentally prepared myself. Like, I'm okay to like, honestly, like, I find so much comfort in knowing that Gaia, Mother Earth, is our home. And like literally this fucking planet was built for us, or however you want to think about it. You know what I mean? This planet is perfect for us. Yes, there are some dangers and stuff, but that's what life is about, dark and light. You know what I mean? And so, but everything that we need, we have here on this earth. So I'm okay with getting back to that and finding a place, you know what I mean? Like, I have Native American ancestry. Like, I know like if they could do it, then I know we could. Like, it would take a lot of fucking deprogramming from this society in ways that we live in now. But like, I just know that like I would be okay. You know what I mean? Like,
the best thing to do is just to start putting one foot in front of the other, in a way of like, how can you make this better for yourself? Like, how can you, it's not so much that you prepare for the worst. It's more of like, you just strengthen yourself, just make yourself stronger and stronger in whatever way you can. Because ultimately that's operating from a place of love, and it's not operating from a place of fear. Right. And when you can just say, you know what, I'm built for this. I'm going to just find my way, and I'm going to just take it one step at a time. Don't try to bite off, take a bite into the elephant, like just trying to swallow it all at once. You got to chew, and you got to take your time, and there are going to be uncomfortable moments, and there are going to be some highs along the way too, because whenever you're faced with such challenges as we are right now as a society globally, is that you're going to have accomplishments. You're challenging yourself to go into new places that you would have never gone before had you not had the obstacles and challenges that we're being faced with right now. So that is part of the revolution of that energy, like the revolutionary energy allows us to go there through facing the things which are really uncomfortable and really scary. And to be honest, we've avoided them through a lot of comforts, and a lot of convenience. And now we have to kind of, okay, we made some choices. Now we have to kind of face those choices and what are the consequences of them. And that's okay. There's nothing bad about that. It's just, we've all signed up for this big learning curve that is really big.
Yeah, I was actually about to say, I find comfort in that too. Like, just thinking like, I joke around with my friend a lot because she's always like, I just don't understand. Like, you're like so excited and like the world's falling apart. And I'm like, because I was like, dude, like we wouldn't be here if we weren't supposed to be here. You know what I mean? Like, we would not be here if we weren't supposed to live in these times. You know what I mean? Like, how boring would it be to like live your life and like nothing happen and be caught up in this like illusion, basically legalized slavery of a life where you're basically living a life that you really probably wouldn't choose for yourself, that you've been basically like that you've been basically taught to live. You know what I mean? Like, you've been basically like manipulated into, this is just how life works. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, no, like, I don't want to be held down by all these different things, you know what I mean? Like, and so I don't know, like, I feel like, those of us that are alive during these times are here for a reason and are part of this crazy change. You know what I mean? Like, we look back on history a lot and we say like, oh, that person was legendary. Imagine being them alive during that time and doing what they did. Well, now is that time. You know what I mean? It's just a different time, but it's a big time. Anything's possible right now. And anybody can be that legendary person at this time.
That is what's super
Like,
cool. That
yeah,
is what's super cool, is that this is where, the unexpected hero can rise. And that
yeah,
unexpected hero is alive in all of us. It's just a matter of allowing it to come to the surface and shine. And I think that's something that is, I love that what you just said, because I think that's what it's all about. I think that's really what it's all about, and not looking to someone outside of you to be the hero. It's all about us discovering what we're really made of and what we're really capable of through these very challenging times. And I think one of the reasons why you're excited about it is because your life prepared you for this. Your life literally prepared you
yeah,
for this kind of stuff. And so I think sometimes those of us who've had very challenging lives and have experienced a lot of loss and death and trauma and things like that, it doesn't have to be that way for someone to come out on top. But I think that it also helps to give a perspective, like, well, I've already done it and I'm still here, so you can
right,
do it too. And I think that's where we have to remember, is to not get so caught up in all of the craziness, which I know it can be, but to remember like who you are, what you're capable of, and start taking it as an opportunity to say, like, let's start shining, let's start bringing it.
right.
So because we're already at the hour and 10-minute mark, let's get into the Venus retrograde and the nodal shift, on how that's going to impact things.
Okay. How long are we going?
We'll go for like about another 20-25 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so the Venus retrograde. So Venus is going to retrograde right on top of Pluto. And that is going to start this year, the very end of December. And so Venus is the planet that deals with love, beauty, harmony, relationships, money, values, quality, you know what I mean? Also possessions and things like that. Now, what's really interesting is when Venus, I always use like kind of past experiences to track like a pattern, basically. So every time Venus has went retrograde, in my experience, from what I've seen, there's been disharmony. And so from what I've seen, example, last year, Venus was retrograde in the spring in Gemini when the whole George Floyd thing happened. And that was, I bring that up because it's something everybody remembers. It's not something that was just specific to my life, like, oh, I went through a breakup or something, like it's like everyone knows that time frame. Well, Venus was retrograding in Gemini. And so I think that, so this is the first Venus retrograde that we've had since then. This is the first Venus retrograde I'm pretty sure that we've had in Capricorn with Pluto there. And just right before the Pluto return is like exact, like, and I love how astrology does this. It's like right when something's coming into alignment, it's like there's the moon, like on a full moon right on it, or like there's Mercury meeting up with it, or there's Venus going retrograde right on it. Like, and so yeah, so Venus is coming to join the party and going to retrograde. And so basically, a retrograde is kind of like a retracing, a reflecting, a revisal, a reviewing, a redoing, all the re's. So with Venus going retrograde on Pluto and Capricorn, once again, money, you know what I mean? The market, the stock market, the banks. I really think our banking systems, something with that, I think is going to be really, really big. I could possibly see like property or homes possibly in there. And I could also see, I mean, just in general, relationships with people, like in people's personal lives, less on like a global sense, but more on a personal sense. But I could also see really people in power, like big leaders being like something dark coming out, like a sexual assault, a sexual scandal, some kind of like breakup in a relationship of a really powerful person or really powerful people, some kind of corruption revealed with money and finances and all of that, within relationships. Like I know, with all this Libra energy that's ruled by Venus, like the Gabby Petito thing came out, which was interesting because in all the Libra transits were squaring Pluto and Capricorn, so dark, dark stuff. And and her boyfriend's like obviously the main suspect, and it appears pretty sketchy, but it's like within a relationship, you know what I mean? And so I feel like something like that could come out. I'm trying to think. So the US has a Sag rising. So Libra's their 11th and Taurus is their 6th. So it could also be because what I've seen with the 11th house in the US is alliances, and literally like right when Mercury started retrograding in Libra in the US's 11th house, Biden came out and announced something about alliances or something. And it was like the wording of it was so literal. It was like the key words of the planets or whatever. I don't remember the exact transit that was happening at that moment. It was just a few weeks ago though, but it was like, oh my God, this is what I was just saying yesterday. And I like even posted it and everything. But so yeah, I think alliances, but also health, and because it rules the 6th in the US's chart.
Yeah,
So
I think what you're saying is like alliances could change or shift,
yeah,
like
yeah,
unsuspectingly, like
oh
we wouldn't expect it to shift like that, like it'd be
yeah,
a surprise.
yeah, yeah. And I think I think, can you still see me? Am I still on this?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. I think also I'm trying to bring up the US's chart really quick. I can't remember if their midheaven is
Yeah,
in.
and I think for everyone else, while she's looking for that, the reason why this is really powerful is because Venus is going retrograde, which right on the Pluto transit in Capricorn. So when she's going retrograde, she's slowing down, which means she's going to be on Pluto for a really long time. Like she's slowing down as she's getting there, and then she's going to be slowly like leaving it as she like kind of moves away from it a little bit, going back through Capricorn. But then she's going to have to go back across as it back. It's like there's so much Plutonian energy with Venus.
And then
It's
Mars is, she's going to go back and meet Mars. And then
yes.
Mercury is going to retrograde in Aquarius and go back and stop on Pluto. Like, and Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So it's like super powerful there. But so yeah, it's gonna be, so their midheaven is in the 11th. That's what I was thinking. So the reputation of the US is getting a massive transformation, massive kind of reconstruction going on there. So but yeah, so that's basically what I think about the Venus retrograde.
Okay.
I think it's going to bring up a lot of disruption in those areas, specifically for the US, but worldwide. I mean, it's going to be there can be like a theme of like wealth and money and possibly oil with Pluto and Capricorn. There could be something to do with oil there.
That makes sense.
Yeah, there could also be a lot of relationship changes with powerful people in the world, like connections, possibly even people like turning on each other, exposés, things being dug up from the past on people. I mean, it's going to get kind of grimy, I think, but I think it's going to affect more like, yeah, we're going to see it in our personal lives, but Pluto's it deals with big big changes, you know what I mean? Not like, oh, you're I don't know, oh, you stubbed your toe today, you know what I mean? Like it deals with like big collective changes. And so I think that there's going to be some kind of, I mean, personally, I think people notice like relationship and financial changes possibly, and we'll be really rethinking our desires on finances, property, possessions, money, value, what has value. It's going to be a massive reconstruction of what has value to us at that time.
Yeah.
What's
And that has to shift.
Yeah, because and this is actually bringing me back to my predictions on a lot of the stuff in Capricorn, but Capricorn really tears things down to like the bare bones of things. And Venus retrograde there on Pluto, that's going to be a massive shift in what we as a collective, but
Value.
also, yes, but especially for the US, because it's in our second house. So what we value and what's like truly important. Like, what do you need? And what, like, Capricorn is like, no bullshit. Like, Cancer is over here, like, I need to bring my blanket. And Capricorn's like, no, come on, forget it. We got to go. Like, what do you need? Like, what do you need? Do you need it to survive? You know what I mean? Like, if you don't, we got to go.
Yeah.
So,
well, then on top of all of that, so this is what, because, you mentioned earlier too about how Pluto is going to be, we're going to be hitting this kind of Pluto return part for quite a bit throughout next year and into 2023. We also have the nodes changing into the Taurus Scorpio axis. So how's that also playing a role in all of this?
Yeah, so I cannot wait to see how this plays out, but I'm like so excited. Like, I'm so excited to do a video on this because it's like it just excites me for some reason. But so the North Node is going to move into Taurus. And this is where a lot of my ideas about getting back to a more natural, sustainable way of living. Like, once again, what do you value? What's of quality with the North Node in Taurus? Because Venus rules Taurus. So there's a lot of overlapping patterns here that we're seeing with next year. And so, and the year after. But so with Taurus, it's going to be like, what's of quality and what isn't. And that's going to change. What we once thought had quality and what we were once like emotionally attached to, South Node in Scorpio, is going to be getting swept away. And we're going to be more, eventually we're going to be, what I've noticed with the nodal axis is like, yeah, I'll notice both themes, but I'll notice a lot of the South Node at first, like everywhere and everyone. Like, I'll just see the South Node everywhere. And I'm like, damn, you know what I mean? Because a lot of like ancient astrology looked at the South Node as like decreasing, but I don't know if I feel that it may get to that point eventually in the nodal transits, like the 18-month nodal transits. But at first, it seems like an increase of like South Node karmic toxic energy, especially when they moved into Gemini and Sag last spring. I mean, that was like click, and everybody like had an opinion, and everybody and their opinion was right, and you had to listen. And it was like, holy shit, it got very dogmatic, which is kind of the shadow side of Sag. But so anyway, but with this, I think that the South Node in Scorpio, people are going to feel insecure about what's happening in the world with the economy. And so emotionally, they're going to cling to possibly things that really just make them worse off. So this could look like how money in our US system today, in our banking system, is money is created from debt. And so basically, which is kind of messed up, you know what I mean? Like, and so I feel like with the South Node in Scorpio, it's kind of like, oh, like I could, keep just going into debt, or I could just keep relying on other people or the government specifically to, do this, like I could see it getting to where the government's like, okay, we'll help you, But if we help you, we control you, Scorpio. You know what I mean? We take your power, basically. We tell you when and what you can and can't do. Now, this is kind of like a dramatic possibility. It may not play out like this, but it could be, it could happen. This is just an example of what's coming to me right now. And Scorpio, it's like the south node there. Well, I'm emotionally attached to the way things were, so I'm going to hang on for dear life. And Taurus is like, no, you need to fend for yourself. You need to create harmony for yourself. Pluto and Capricorn, you find your power through creating your own foundation. And then Taurus, North Node and Taurus, you learn how to maintain that foundation. You do things that are sustainable. You learn how to make things last and how to appreciate things that have quality and that actually give you a certain amount of independence. Uranus and Taurus, which the node is going to conjunct eventually, that you find independence and freedom and liberation through having your own shit. Taurus can be stingy. It likes to have its own shit. Now, other placements can change that. I know you're a Taurus, but
no, I definitely, I have that quality. I like what's mine, and I don't like to share when I really like it. Like, you know how, just, this is really basic, but like when it comes to like a food that I really, really want and someone's like, oh, I'll just share it with you. I'm like, no, you won't. Go get it yourself. Like, that's mine. Like, that's what I really want. And I don't want to give it to you because I really want it.
If I didn't want it, then I would give it to you, but obviously I want it. So, but no, like Taurus, so I feel like with the North Node and Taurus, it's really about gaining independence, freedom, and liberation through doing the hard work ourselves, gaining what we can, like, and I really, really feel like it's going to impact the food industry in some way. And I've been waiting for it. There's been like little glimpses here and there, but I've been waiting for it because it's going to be with Taurus and even Pluto and Capricorn, like the, farming industry and the farmers and the kind of like
anything agriculture.
That's the word I was looking for. Agricultural. I don't know, like Mercury's still in shadow. I guess that's it, but I still like cannot communicate words. But so yeah, anything agricultural, any kind of food supply, I feel like is going to be something's coming with it, and I feel like it's pushing us towards some kind of independent living or independent growing, like having things of our own, having things of worth and value of our own. And that's how you find independence over these next few years, I think.
Yeah. And I think for everyone who's not aware, like in the audience listening right now, when we talk about the North Node is about everything that's not comfortable for you. It's not familiar. You haven't done it before. It's not your comfort zone. Okay. That's the South Node. So we're going to be looking towards, just even on a personal level, how to create our own security and our own safety and take care of ourselves in that way that is going to it's going to be foreign to us. We haven't done it before. So we're all being pushed to kind of like growing your own food is a perfect example of North Node and Taurus, like you were just talking about, because now you're learning how to create sustainability and security for yourself through the land, growing your own food, not depending on someone else to do it. Not that there's anything wrong with getting food from other people, but to the point where we've now become so reliant that none of us even know how to grow shit anymore,
And they don't even teach it to you in school.
No.
You know what I mean? Which is like insane. But I think with the North Node and Taurus as well, I think once again, land and who owns what land, Taurus is also somewhat like ownership and like kind of having that, like having the material things that you need to do what you need to do in life. You know what I mean? And so, now that can get into excessiveness and luxury and, all of that overspending, overeating, whatever with Taurus. But I think more so it's going to be with Uranus there and the node coming up with it. And eventually Mars will meet up with it next year as well. I think that it's going to be like, there's going to be a lot of like rebellion within the system or within the world of food companies and people possibly like finding new ways to be sustainable or new like modern ways to be sustainable. And that's why, and I really think like speaking of the tiny house movement, I think that's such a Uranus and Taurus thing. It's like finding a way to like be sustainable, like a modern eccentric way that you wouldn't think about. Like you're still modern because you still have like this nice little house and everything, but like it and you have solar panels and all of that so you can have like electricity and stuff, but you're also like off the grid at the same time, and you
Yeah.
also own all of it at the same time. Like it's just like the perfect Uranus and Taurus thing to me. But so yeah, so that's what I think Uranus and Taurus, or the North Node in Taurus, is going to bring up. And then Uranus is already in Taurus, so that's going to add to that Uranian, rebellious, like
Sudden change.
yeah, eccentric, unpredictability,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like higher forms of thinking. You know, I all of the higher intelligence, all of that is going to be kind of impacted. Or
Yeah. And with the node also going in Scorpio, it's like that rules our banking systems, taxes, all of those kinds of institutions, the that like you said, it looks like with the Venus going retrograde in Capricorn and then Pluto in Capricorn in the house of the US, everything is just, it's almost like the perfect storm
yeah,
of shit to go down when it comes to the monetary system, the banking system, how we feel secure in the world, how we feel safe,
yeah.
and where we get our resources from. We're already seeing it. We're already seeing some of the shortages that are happening in different places. So it's all really playing into the energies that we're already seeing coming forward.
Mm-hmm. I do have good news though. One good
Yeah, leave us with some good news. Leave us with some love and light here, Tawny.
yeah. So there won't be, I don't think there won't be as much propaganda and misinformation because the nodes will be moving out of Gemini and Sag, which I cannot wait. I'm like, oh my God. Which I mean, I always knew like that was gonna be so big. Like, not saying that there won't be any at all, but it's not going to be like right now. It's like just everything's so opinionated and so like everyone has an opinion, and you can't tell opinion from fact. You can't tell fiction from nonfiction. And that's literally Gemini and Sag, right? Like Gemini is like, show me the facts, show me the proof, like, you know, and Sag is like, well, this is just what I believe. And so that's how it is. You know what I mean? This thing between what's real, what's the facts, what's the proof, versus, well, what do you just have faith in and believe? You know what I mean? Like that's not the same thing as real per se all the time, you know? And so I think with the no, I'm kind of, that's another reason why I'm excited for the Scorpio Taurus, even though Scorpio is my fourth house. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm excited for it because at least it's fixed sign, so it's like more of a steady energy, and it's not mutable where it's just like like a firework just constantly exploding. But and then also Jupiter and Pisces, and I can't tell, it's like it kind of seems like it's so weird because we have this past spring to compare it to, which is when the world like really opened up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like no one cared anymore about anything that was going on. Everyone was like, I'm going on vacation. See ya. I don't care. Oh, you want me to? You're like, no, stop. Just get away from me. You know, I'm doing what I want. Like no one cared. You know, everyone like just was nicer to each other. There wasn't as much like division. And as soon as Jupiter moved back into Aquarius, like, oh my God, there was the new variant and these restrictions and mandates and yada, yada, yada. So with comparing that, when Jupiter moves into Pisces at the very end of this year, you would think like, oh, okay, things are going to open up and be like very carefree. But then all this other stuff going on is like, no. And so I do kind of think like a possibility, it may not be like 100%, but I do think that there's a good possibility, at least with Jupiter and Pisces, that like people may not be as worried about the virus anymore. Like that may be more of just like there's other shit going on now. Like we thought that was big, but this is bigger. So we're gonna,
Yeah.
like we're gonna worry about this now. And that, it may not be, I don't know. Like it's all kind of just up in the air. It's all possibilities. But with Jupiter and Pisces, I do think that and with the North Node in Taurus, I feel like we're gonna get into some hippie stuff, though. I feel like, some, plant growing, psychedelics, um, herbal remedies, holistic remedies, I think are gonna start becoming really big. And I think that's gonna be cool. And I do think Jupiter and Pisces is going to solve some of those division tensions. I think a lot of people are going to be more focused on enlightening the fuck up rather than, just continuing to argue amongst each other. And
Yeah, because there's only so long people can stay in that state where your focus of something being wrong can stay there for so long before something else does come in and it's like, oh, and it needs your attention and you can't give everything to that problem that's been there for so long anymore. And I think that's what is needed is kind of just this shift in perspective, that definitely Jupiter and Pisces can bring, like going into a different way of looking at things from a deeper perspective,
a more internal perspective.
Yeah.
Like a transcendental kind of thing, like where
Exactly.
you're releasing and moving on. Like I think a lot of people may even like start really waking up and I think whatever happens, I think is gonna possibly ripple and wake a lot of people up and like maybe give people like it's weird with the whole Jupiter's in Pisces the whole year. It does move into Aries, which that is a little like woo. I don't know about that time frame, but Jupiter and Pisces, at least that time frame, I do feel like people are going to be like, it's like, I think that's good with everything else going on because it balances it out and it gives it kind of like a broader perception of what's happening. And I think it gives us faith in unity or faith in something bigger than ourselves because that's what Jupiter does and that's what Pisces does. And after the South Node being in Sag, kind of tearing away at our faith and our beliefs for this long now, I think it's going to be like a nice, like almost renewal of like faith, but not only faith with just in the collective, but like faith within ourselves because Pisces is a feminine sign, therefore more internal, like more waking up inside instead of Sag, which is very waking up outside, like going and finding the truth or the information or whatever, where Pisces is like going inward, you know what I mean? And
Which is what we said, like just focus on self.
yeah,
Like focus on the inner work and like things could get a lot better for everyone.
yeah,
So as opposed to just worrying about everyone else outside of you.
yeah.
Well, this has been like super interesting. I love it. I think that you've brought a lot of interesting insights to my audience. And I know that you've had some of your predictions like really come true just recently. So I highly suggest everyone who's watching to go check out Tawny's YouTube channel as well as her Instagram and Facebook because she's got a great channel there with not just doing like your own personal signs, which is always fun, but you really do go into a lot what's happening in the world. And I think it's great. Yeah. So is there anything you want to leave the audience a note on?
Not really. Just thank you for watching and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all that. I basically do the most, I would say, on YouTube and Instagram. I have a website. I do personal readings. And Yeah, that's basically it. I do have an astrology course that's about to be for sale. It's already been done. It was done live with a bunch of my people that joined the astrology course that signed up. And but I recorded everything and I'm gonna have it for sale here within like the next few days. So if anyone's interested in learning
Okay,
astrology.
great. So go check it out. Though I've also left the website and a link in the show notes for those of you listening on iTunes and Spotify later and any other podcast app out there. Please go check her out. You won't be disappointed. Thank you, Tawny, for coming on the show and
Oh,
for enlightening us with all of the dark stuff, all of that dark matter. It's all good. It's important. You got to, the best way that you can move forward is by knowing all sides. You
yeah,
got to know everything that you're dealing with, and that's what's going to equip you and make you the strongest. So
right.
thank you for coming on the show, guys. I love you so much. And, take note of everything we discussed, especially in the first half of the show, because we're going to be going into more detail next week. You won't want to miss it. I've got Kelly Thebo coming on, and she's giving us a 1-hour channeling session with the collective. And she is also much like Tawny and I, where, they don't give you what you want to hear. They tell you what you need to hear. And so I like that. I like delivering it direct and straight to the heart of the matter of the truth. So we're going to get a lot of that next week. Guys, I love you so much. Have a wonderful night, and we'll